Imagine you are at the most important moment of your life. Adrenaline is rushing through your veins. Your team has just scored the game-winning basket, and the entire gym erupts with deafening force. You smile, knowing you did it. But as you look out at the crowd, your smile completely fades. Amid all the jumping and cheering, a dark, dense, completely motionless shadow stares directly at you from the back of the bleachers. A presence that no one else can see, but that you know, with terrifying certainty, has come exclusively for you. The movie begins by immersing us in this suffocating atmosphere of tension. Horse, the basketball team's star player, tries with all his strength to regain control of his breathing and convince himself that what he saw was nothing more than a trick of his exhausted mind. However, as the clock runs down its final seconds and the ball floats through the air toward the hoop, that dark silhouette suddenly breaks out of its stillness and lunges directly at him at an inhuman speed. The game has been won. But for Horse, the real fight for survival has just begun. Desperately running toward the cold solitude of the locker room, with his hands trembling so violently that he can barely open his locker, he manages to pull out a mysterious black object. Overcome by blind panic, he grabs a heavy metal weight and smashes the object against the floor, foolishly believing that by destroying the artifact, he would also break the connection with his pursuer. However, death is not so easily destroyed. As Horse tries to calm his racing heart under the shower, thick, unnatural black smoke begins to pour forcefully from the drain beneath his feet. Out of nowhere, a horrifying figure surrounded by blazing fire materializes before him. Before the young man can let out a single cry for help, the creature thrusts its hand directly into his mouth, forcing it deep down his throat and consuming him in an absolute internal fire. Seconds later, his friends enter the locker room celebrating their victory, only to find the nightmarish and heartbreaking sight of their teammate burning alive from the inside, completely helpless against a fire that does not belong to this world. Shortly afterward, after morning casts a shadow over the town, life seems to return to normal. This is where we meet Chris, a new student who silently carries a heavy emotional burden: the guilt of surviving the car accident that claimed her father's life. On her first day of school, fate plays its first macabre card by assigning her the exact locker that belonged to the late Horse. After a tense confrontation with the basketball player's friends, who aggressively demand the space back, Chris ends up in detention with several other classmates under the strict supervision of Professor Craven. Unexpectedly, while organizing her belongings, Chris drops an object she found hidden at the bottom of the locker. A small vase-shaped box containing an ancient whistle carved in the shape of a human skull. Professor Craven, intrigued by the strange object bearing the word Pisgah, confiscates the whistle and brings it to his lips. When he blows it, it unleashes an ultrasonic shriek so sharp and deafening that every window in the classroom shatters into thousands of pieces. Dazed, the teacher heads to the bathroom to wash his face, leaving the classroom empty. It is at that precise moment that a boy named Ralph takes advantage of the opportunity to steal the mysterious object from the desk. What no one realizes is that the whistle has already claimed its first victim in that very room. When Professor Craven returns to the classroom, he is immediately ambushed and killed by a horrifying, decayed specter. That same night, looking for an escape from their routine, the students gather at a house to rehearse. Ralph decides to show off the stolen whistle, and between laughter and skepticism, they come up with an apparently harmless game. Use the artifact to summon the dead. Grace takes the whistle, and with a mixture of amusement and rebelliousness, blows into it with all her strength. The high-pitched sound pierces their ears. Suddenly, the atmosphere becomes cold and heavy. Din, one of the boys, swears he can hear footsteps approaching from the thick darkness outside in the yard. The collective curse has been sealed. Everyone who heard the whistle has been marked. The next day, after learning with horror about the teacher's death, Chris and her friend Ellie decide to investigate the origin of the whistle. Their search leads them to Ivy, an elderly woman who guards a room filled with antiques. When they try to return the whistle to her, Ivy reveals a heartbreaking and disturbing rule. You do not possess the whistle. It chooses its victims. And its sound does not summon some generic grim reaper, but your own death. The apparition that stalks you is the exact manifestation of how you are going to die in the future, except the whistle brings that moment forward, causing the victim's body to age prematurely until it reaches the exact age they would have been when they naturally died. The confirmation of this rule arrives in the most tragic way during the Harvest Festival. Grace decides to enter one of the attractions inside the haunted maze. Among the costumed actors, she notices a woman with a disturbing, empty stare watching her intently. Grace tries to escape, but no matter which corridor she takes, the woman appears, blocking her way out. In a climax of pure desperation, the apparition brutally strikes her with a shovel. As Grace desperately tries to crawl toward the exit, the spectral old woman grabs her by the foot. All of a sudden, the curse takes effect. Grace's body begins to wrinkle and age at a terrifying speed, transforming her into a lifeless old woman who is hung up inside the attraction, to the horror of Din, who arrives too late to save her. With time running out, the group discovers through Ivy one final desperate option. Death cannot be avoided, but it can be transferred to another person as a blood sacrifice to save your own life. Ralph, consumed by selfishness and panic after suffering visions of his own death, decides to kidnap and drug Noah, a shady local dealer, in order to transfer his fate to him. However, fate cannot be fooled so easily. Before Ralph can complete the ritual, his own death manifests inside the room, and before the horrified eyes of Chris and Ellie, who arrive to stop him, kills him by brutally snapping his joints with inhuman force. Knowing that they are next on the list, Chris and Ellie decide to play their final card in one of the most emotional scenes of the story. Hiding in an abandoned section of the hospital, they decide to trick Death by recreating Chris's accident. They will use medication to temporarily stop Chris's heart, and once Death believes it has claimed her life, Ellie will revive her. Chris climbs into the bathtub and allows the substance to take effect. While unconscious, Death tries to drown her underwater, but at that exact moment, Noah, who had escaped, bursts into the room shooting and unleashing chaos. In the limbo between life and death, clinging to Ellie's voice, Chris manages to wake up. As she rises, wounded by a gunshot, Chris's death lunges toward them, but when it comes into contact with Ellie's blood, the curse immediately transfers to Noah. Overcome by absolute panic when he sees his own specter appear, Noah begins shooting wildly, but the bullets bounce off the entity and strike him instead, ending his life and stopping the curse. 3 months after that terrible nightmare, Chris and Ellie enjoy their love, peaceful and holding hands. However, in the school's hallways, a new student opens her locker only to find a mysterious box. And inside, the death whistle patiently awaits its next victim. What did you think of this terrifying story about fate and death? If it kept you on the edge of your seat and you want to keep discovering summaries of the scariest and most mysterious movies, don't forget to give this video a big like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming movie summaries.